It's Japanese, and each S is a Japanese word, but in English, it means sort, set, standardize, shine, and sustain. So, when we think about running our small businesses, and we're like, well, what can we do to improve? What business methods or practices can we adopt that will help us with our small business? And 5S is one of those business tools. Now, is it really necessary for truck drivers to do 5S? Answer is no. You don't have to do 5S. So if you're worried about, is this going to make or break your business? The answer is no. This is completely optional. In fact, I don't know very many people who actually do 5S. I mean, I do 5S. I recommend 5S, but I don't know how many of those people I recommended to actually do 5S. So let's give some examples. You ever see the truck driver and he's got all this junk on his windshield, all the paper and all that stuff up there? That guy is definitely not doing 5S. So you think of 5S as being the optimal level of efficiency, cleanliness, order. You know, um, this is the ideal way you want to set up your workplace. So if you were in manufacturing, for example, and you had to assemble, spread out, in a warehouse facility, you'd have all those 10 parts very close to you so that they're within arm's reach and you can assemble that part very have all this extra junk and equipment around your workspace. You would push that further away. It's like, well, maybe you need it, but you don't need it to assemble this part. So this is kind of the idea with 5S, is that you're going to optimize, your workspace. And then it could be your truck, it could be your garage, it could be your home, it could be your storage unit, whatever it may be. Items that you use, you're going to keep very, very close to you. So for example, if you're in your truck, you may want to keep, some of the paperwork you use every day in a clipboard next to you, very close to you. So like you get your bill of lading from the customer, you put it on a clipboard and you put the clipboard within arm's reach. So then you deliver your load, you reach over and you hand them your paperwork. It wouldn't do you any good to put that paperwork under your bunk as far away as possible. So that's the idea of 5S. So let's go through it. So the first one is sort. Sort is you're going to go through, you have received new messages. For example, you're going to go through your truck, and I do this all the time on home time. You can go through your truck and you're going to sort through all your items that you have in your truck, and you're going to remove those items that you haven't used or not going to use or thought you would use, but you turned out you didn't need it. I do this all the time, especially when seasons change and you have to go through your clothing and it's like, well, it's spring now. I don't need this heavy winter coat. So you're sorting through your clothes and you're like, okay, I need this, I don't need that. And I'm constantly taking things in and out of my truck, cooking appliances and things like that. So different supplies I carry the truck different times of year. Different tools I carry the truck different times of the year. So I'm always sorting through things. It's like you gotta weed through, keep what you need, and then take out what you don't need. So if you were cleaning out a garage, you would do the same thing. You would sort through your garage items, and you would be like, okay, well, I got to clean out this garage, and you would sort through things that you need, and you create a pile of things you need and a pile of things you don't need. And of the things you don't need, you can either throw it away, you can donate it to charity, you can sell it on eBay, you can give it to somebody. But the idea is you're going to clean up your workspace and you're going to get those items that you don't need out of your way. Because you got too much clutter. You can't find anything because you got all this extra stuff that you're carrying around, and it's just getting in the way. So you need to sort through it. So that's the first step, is sort. The second one is set. Now you got all your items sorted from good and bad and things you need and don't need. Now you need to set. Everything has to have its place. This is like a mechanic, for example. He knows where his tools are. His half-inch wrench has a specific place, and every time he needs a half-inch wrench, he knows exactly where to go. He's not spending hours looking for that half-inch wrench. So everything has its place. So when you organize your truck, for example, everything has its place. It's like the things you use most are going to be closest to you. Things that you think you need to have with you on a truck, you need to put that further away from you. So if you don't use it every day, put it under your bunk, get it out of the way. Things that you do use, you want to pull forward and put it within arm's reach. It's like where's your coffee pot? It has to have a set place. That's where it is. That's your designated storage space. It's always going to be there. You don't have to search your truck looking for your coffee pot every day. You know where it's at. so so that's the idea with set. So we did sort, then we did set, then we're going to do standardize. Standardize is kind of like you know pick one, if anything, and that's going to be your standard set. So let's say, for example, you are going to buy tools for your truck, and you got a choice of Milwaukee, Makita, Rigid, DeWalt, so on and so on and so on. Five different brands, and they all have their own different battery packs to go with them. Well, that is something you got to decide. Go with one brand. It doesn't matter. They're all good. I like Milwaukee, but maybe you like DeWalt. That's okay. But go with one brand, and you will have standardized batteries for each of your power tools. So it wouldn't do you any good to have a Milwaukee leaf blower and a DeWalt fan and a Makita drill, and now you got to get three different battery packs for three different tools. It's like that's no good. You want to standardize. It's like I got a Milwaukee leaf blower, I have a Milwaukee fan, I have a Milwaukee drill, and the battery pack goes to any of those. So that's the idea with standardized. Now you could do that with everything. It's like, why are you carrying five different types of plastic cups? Choose one, and that's your brand. That's your standardized set of plastic cups. Things with pens, it's like you got five different types of pens. Just choose one. You're trying to simplify things. A lot of times when we buy multiple brands and different versions of the same things, we're adding complexity that it's not necessary. Again, we want to follow some of these principles like lean manufacturing. We want to simplify things. So standardizing is simplifying things. It's like, you don't need five different jackets. No, you need one good jacket. Simplify, standardize, simplify. So we talked about sort, set, standardize. Next one is sort, set, standardize. Okay, shine. Shine is you want to keep your workplace clean. It's like, if you are say like a food manufacturer, for example, you don't want all this dirt and clutter around your workstation. No, you got to keep it clean. You should keep your truck clean. You should be ready for a truck inspection every single day. If DOT officer, state trooper wants to look inside your truck, it's a time to shine, man. It's like, yeah, my stuff is squared away. You'll be impressed when you come look at my truck. I got clean carpets on the floor. No dust on the dash, no extra paper lying around. Everything is set in place. Everything is squared away. Everything is ready for inspection every day. And this is the idea with shine. You're going to wash your truck. You're going to keep your truck clean. You're going to keep everything neat, organized, ready to be presented. It's presentable. You're not going to be embarrassed if somebody wants to look at your truck. It's like, yeah, you can look at my truck. It's ready to go. So that's shine. So we talked about sort, set, standardize, shine. Last one is sustain. You got to do this over and over and over again. You can't do it once and be done with it. No, you this is a daily habit you got to start forming. A good habit to do is get in the routine of doing 5S. All right, someone says, I am going to school for welding. Let's see here. I'm reading this comment. It's hard for me to read, so bear with me. My eyesight's not as good as it used to be. I'm planning on buying a rig and going crazy. What do you think about this? Well, if you're gonna go to welding, commit yourself to welding. If you're gonna drive a truck, commit yourself to driving a truck. You know, it's something, if you're gonna be an owner operator, and I just did a video on this the other day. Um, the only easy day was yesterday. So especially for someone new starting out, you really have to commit. It takes all your time, all your money, all your energy. It's not something that trucking's really not something you can do part time, especially if you own a truck. So if you want to be successful, then you got to devote yourself 100% to your to your choice. If you want to be successful in welding, commit yourself 100% to welding. If you want to be successful as an owner operator, commit yourself 100% to being an owner operator. If you try to split your time between being an owner operator and trying to go to school, that'd be hard. No, a rig and welding. Oh, a rig and welding, like a pickup cutting with welding supplements. Yeah, that'd be fine. Welders are in high demand, especially if you are a high skilled welder, and like this guy is thinking about becoming a mobile welder. It depends on what industry you're going to be serving. But like if you're in oil and gas and you're a welder, that would be, that probably be a nice business model to get into. So let's get back to 5S. So we talked about sort, set, standardize, shine, and the last one, sustain. So sustain is, you got to make this part of your daily business habits. And every time you go home, you should be thinking about, oh, I need to do 5S. It's like, I don't even think about it anymore. Some of these things are just common sense. You probably already do it. You probably already do some things that are sort related. Like when you get your mail, for example, you sort through your mail. You're like, all right, this is important. This is junk mail. This is a bill I got to pay. This I can throw away. That's sort. So some of these things you already do, you just weren't putting it in the context of 5S. It's like, okay, well, if now you want to name it as 5S, it's like, okay, we'll do 5S all the time. When I go home time, I do 5S all the time. I'm cleaning out that truck. I'm taking things out, putting things in, getting things organized, setting things in place, standardizing everything, cleaning the truck, making it shine, and then I'm sustaining that methodology, and then I'm ready to go back on the road. So if anyone ever asks me, hey, what's your plan for home time? I tell them right off, I'm going to do 5S on my truck. And you're like, what? Yeah, I'm going to do 5S on my truck. I'm going to do 5S on my storage unit. I have a 10 by 20 climate controlled storage unit. It's like a little mini warehouse, and I keep things that I need towards the front on shelves and toolboxes, and stuff I don't need I put in the back. So I mean, I don't want to throw it away, but I'm not going to use it right away either. So I put it further away from me. Stuff I use every day, I bring it towards the front. And then stuff that I haven't used in over a year, I sell it on eBay, or I give it away, or something like that. But I don't keep it forever. I'm not a pack rat. I think 5S is a cure for any pack rat. 5S is a cure for these truck drivers that have clutter all over their windshields. It doesn't look good, and DOT is not going to be impressed. You should be ready to go for inspection any day of the week. It's like, you can inspect me anytime you want. I do 5S. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the internet.